Welcome to this episode of the Smarter Business Podcast. This is business advice with a video bent. What we like to do on this podcast is talk to business leaders who are using video in interesting ways. This month's episode, we have Patrick Walsh of EagleHawk, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the interesting things that they do, both with tech and with video. So, Patrick, it's great to have you.
Thank you, Neil. Excited to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming on. And I think this will be a really interesting episode, right? Because some of what we are tying this episode to is our monthly theme on the vidwheel creator network, which is video success. And you all are doing video in a very different way than a lot of our members, and kind of the way that people traditionally think about it. So first things first, can you give us, go ahead and introduce EagleHawk. What does the company do, and kind of, how did it all get started?
Yeah, so EagleHawk, we're a drone services and technology company, and we like to say we're providing facilities technology for outside the building. And so the company started around doing large-scale facility inspections, leveraging drones and advanced sensors like high-resolution cameras and thermal cameras to detect facilities issues on the outside of the building, whether it's the building itself or the solar system or the steam system on campus, and do it in a way that was safer, faster, and more affordable than in the past. We've been at it for almost 5 years now, and it's been exciting to see how this drone technology is really helping our customers understand their facility better.
Yeah, excellent. It's a very different take, I feel like, than what a lot of people think of when they think drone, services, right? I've got my FAA 107 license to fly, and we'll shoot for video and stuff with that type of setup. But you all are doing, a lot more of the facility oriented services. So I guess what kind of sent you in that direction? How did you get started saying this is the type of business that I want to run?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. So, my background, I'm an aerospace mechanical engineer. I grew up here in Buffalo. I went to RIT where I got my undergrad and master's in engineering, and I got hired by Lockheed Martin, the defense firm, right out of school. And spent almost 10 years in Orlando, Florida, working in their plant down there that specialized in thermal imaging technology for military aircraft. And back in 2016, that's when the drone industry was really just coming online. The FAA had released kind of the commercial regulations for the use of drones, and they came out with the Part 107 process, so you could become a certified pilot. And so at that time, my wife and I were looking to get back to Buffalo. We had a young family at the time, and we wanted to get back home. And so I saw the drone industry as an opportunity to leverage my background in engineering and my passion for aerospace and drone technology, and then my background with thermal imaging from Lockheed to say, how could I take that skill set and use drones to do inspections in a way that was unique. And so moved back here. I got connected with Will, who's my co-founder, and Will was similar story. He saw drones coming online. He was more of a GIS and mapping type guy, and we got connected through a mutual contact, and we decided to kind of do it together. And we got lucky. Our first big break was we got hired by the University of Buffalo to inspect all their buildings across 3 campuses. We did 100 buildings over 2 days. We inspected them both with visual cameras and thermal cameras, and we found that a lion's share of the buildings had roof issues, and they didn't know about it. And we really helped them understand what was going on campus. It allowed them to kind of prioritize roof issues, set better budgets, and really kind of manage the roofs in a much more proactive way. And that kind of opened our eyes to the bigger opportunity. And since then, we've worked with dozens of universities now across the country. We have Ivy League schools like Yale and Cornell and Dartmouth as customers now. So it's been pretty exciting to see how this technology as a tool, as a way to collect information in a way that's, as I said before, safer, faster, more affordable, is really helping our customers get information on their assets in a way they never could before, and actually use it to do their job more effectively. So it's been exciting to see that.
That's awesome. And the thermal cameras and traditional video cameras as an inspection tool, I would suspect, that the old way of doing it would have been to walk that same roof or get up in a cherry picker or something and do a similar thing? Is that how it would have been done prior to your service?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, I mean, most people didn't deal with roofing issues until water was coming in the building. And
Well,
so
there's that
this
too,
is like the
right?
worst time to know that you have a roof issue.
Right.
And so I mean, thermal imaging has been around for 20 years, and it's been used to inspect roofs and other things. It's the problem is, like you said, you had to get up on a roof, walk around at night. And so there's a danger aspect, and then you're limited by how fast you could walk. And so if you wanted to do a whole campus, it would take you weeks. It would take forever. And so it just wasn't a practical way to inspect roofs. And roofers, they'll come out and, a good experienced roofer, can identify issues, but what they can kind of see and feel. But again, like they're limited by what they can see and feel, and then they're walking around as well. So you got the danger aspect, and then just they can't really scale that, right? It takes a lot to kind of walk 100 roofs on a campus. And so drones have really enabled a way to get information, and be able to understand the condition of these assets in a way that wasn't possible before drones. And so it's really kind of opened the eyes of facilities managers, because now they're learning, drones are just not a toy my nephew got for Christmas. It's actually a tool that could be used in a way to get information on my building in a way that's unique. And so, yeah, it's come a long way. I mean, that technology is really advanced, and the cameras these drones can carry now are pretty high resolution. It's pretty amazing the clarity you get. And the thermal cameras, when they incorporated that they use it pretty. It's not like a military grade thermal camera, but the resolution is good enough to do a decent inspection.
Excellent. And the drones themselves, are you using a specific manufacturer? Are you building your own? Because like I tried the drone thing before, the prepackaged, say, DJI Phantom, and you had to build your own. And I would imagine with the level of complexity you're dealing with, that it probably isn't off the shelf. Or am I wrong about that?
No, I mean, we do use off the shelf. I mean, FLIR integrated one of the thermal cameras with the DJI drone back in like 2016. And so, for us, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel when it came to drone technology. We wanted to focus on using it as a tool to collect data and information in a way that was unique. And DJI, the downside is they're a Chinese company, and there's a stigma to that, and obviously current concerns about privacy and all that. But they make some of the best drones in the world, and so they they're easy to use, they work well, and they've kind of got the latest in technology. So we started with DJI because they were really the only capable drone back in 2016, and we've kind of stuck with it. Now there's been cases where we've customized their platforms or tailored it to certain jobs. And, we're looking at other platforms, because anytime we get into the government space, especially the federal government, they don't like the Chinese-made drones. And so we're looking for American alternatives. And finally, I think, America's starting to catch up in some degree with their drone technology, which is great. And so we're not married to DJI long-term, but until now, I mean, their platforms have worked well for us, and allows us to focus on collecting the data and not worry about building drones.
Yeah, that's what we always used for my purposes. DJI has definitely dominated the space. Yeah. All right, so we got a lot of background on EagleHawk. I always ask people, this is your standard networking elevator pitch stuff. If you had to boil down what EagleHawk does to one sentence, what would you say that you do?
Yeah, I mean, we provide facilities management technology for everything outside the building. I mean, basically is that. I mean, if you look at facilities technology out there, most of it's focused on the inside of the building, and that's because you can get information easily on the inside of the building. You got systems manager, heating and cooling, your lighting systems, your workspace, your occupancy. But when it comes to the outside of the building, software tools just didn't make sense, because getting information on the outside of the building was hard and dangerous and expensive. Mm-hmm. Drones are changing that. So we can get into it more later, but we're developing a software platform now that we're releasing this summer that's going to take the data we collect and provide a tool for managers to use it in a way that they never could in the past. And so we're really excited about that.
I'll tell you what, that's a great segue, because my next thing in my notes was that you all have always had an eye on innovation, right? Like taking that next step, developing more technology surrounding what you're doing. So that that system is a great example. What are some of the other kind of interesting, I don't know, shots that you've taken at like furthering the technology of what you can do with your drone setup?
Yeah, I mean, the first piece was, the drone enabled a way to collect information in a way that couldn't be done in the past. Now there was a tool that can collect information on the outside of a building that made it safe and affordable. And but going forward, the key cost driver for us is the analysis. We can go out and collect information on our buildings, but it takes our team weeks to go through thousands of images, analyze them, identify issues, and then turn that into a deliverable that a client can then ingest and be able to use. And that's where all the cost is. And so we're investing in AI and machine learning to take those weeks down to days and days down to hours. And so we can continue to drive down the cost of the inspection, and it allows the customer, the end user, to do inspections on a more regular basis. Because the sooner you have the data, the quicker you got to identify the problem, the cheaper and easier it is to do it. And so we want to make that process much more affordable and continue to drive down that cost. The next piece is using the data. I mean, we would go into a campus, we do 100 buildings, we would find that 80% of them had issues, and we would find hundreds of issues, 400 or 500 issues. And now a manager's got to go through and prioritize and figure out who's going to go up there and double check and make sure it's a real issue, who's going to repair it, where am I going to get the budgeting for that. And so our software is providing that next step in the value chain, which is giving them an interface that's easy to use. It gives them like a God's eye view of the campus, shows them easy visual cues of where the problems are. Now they can dive into, understand what it is, and get help in estimating what it's going to cost to repair it or fix that area, and then estimate the energy impact. I mean, energy is becoming a key part of what we do, because when your roof system gets wet, the insulation gets wet, and now all your heat and energy is going up to your roof. And so if they can understand what is the energy impact of this roof leak, it just gives them more ammo to then deal with the problem and go to their management and say, hey, this is why I need to fix it right now. So we're just kind of building off what the drone does best, is providing great information, and then how do we make that information cheaper and easier to obtain, and how do we make it easier and more effective to use in their everyday work. So that's kind of the track we're on.
That's awesome, and that's some great next steps, right? So you go from something that somebody had to do manually, walking a roof line, dangerous, expensive, would take forever to do, to through technology, you put up a drone, and maybe eventually a few hours later you have a whole mapped out, prioritized system, right? Or reporting system for the campus. That's incredible. That's that's a long way.
Yeah, I mean, I predict in like 5 to 10 years at the most, and it's all driven by regulation mainly at this point. But autonomous drones that are robots in the sky collecting information. I mean, it's coming at some point. It's going to get here. The biggest hurdle is the FAA wants to be able to control the airspace, and the air traffic control system designed for manned aircraft can't handle thousands of drones in the airspace and manage it safely. So they're working on what's called an unmanned traffic management system. Yeah. So it's maybe a technology-based system where it's automatically tracking a lot of stuff and making sure that drones aren't colliding into each other, or colliding into buildings, or hurting anyone.
Sure.
And that's going to be the enabling technology that's going to allow drones to become autonomous robots. And once that happens, a lot of our customers, I predict, will have a drone in the box in the center of campus that's automatically and routinely going up and checking parking lots, doing security. I mean, if it's got the right sensor technology on it, it's going to be able to collect information on the roof, and the building facade, and solar panels on campus. But somebody's going to need to be able to analyze that data and then put it into a tool that's easy to use. And that's where we're reaching the future, and that's where we want to plug it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's an excellent path to go down. And yeah, that technology is very interesting, right? Because on that same college campus where they're going to have their own fleet of maintenance drones, you'll have the Amazon delivery drones flying through and dropping things in the, I don't know, dorm windows or something like that, right? So it'll be an interesting time. And that because you bring up, I'm going to use this as another segue. We have actually shot with EagleHawk. It was a few years back, and it was actually through a member of the Vidwheel Creator Network and a kind of mutual acquaintance, Peter Semino, and
Yep.
we had to shoot for a client right next to the airport. They had a new building facility right next to the airport, and so Peter set us up with Will, your partner there, and all three of us kind of came down there and shot this sequence. And it was really cool because Will is on his cell phone with the control tower at the airport, and we're waiting, for traffic patterns. They're like, okay, after this Delta flight, you can go up for 15 minutes or that type of thing. And I guess, I don't know, that is a level of access that your typical video drone pilot doesn't have. How, like, I would imagine that level of access to airspace and the entities that control it is more important to your company. Do you end up having a lot of situations like that where you have to shoot right next to an airport or like really restricted airspace or anything like that to do your services?
Yeah, I mean, we fly in what's called controlled airspace all the time. So anywhere where it's the airspace near a controlled towered airport, it's usually restricted. And so those are usually near populated areas where people have buildings and all that. So that's usually places where we have to go and inspect or collect data or video. So a lot of it's just coming down to, through experience, we've learned the process of managing that. And the FAA's evolved it, back when, do you know when we did that? How long ago that was? You guys,
Yeah, it's at least 2 or so years ago. I remember because like the apps were out there, and I could request, access to airspace in less restricted areas, but not like on the doorstep of the airport kind of thing. So it's probably 3 years ago, I guess. And,
Yeah, so the FAA is evolving the process. I mean, they came out with their Lance or Lantic, there's different ways to pronounce it, kind of process where it's they gridded out the airspace and it starts at 0 at the runway and it goes to 50 and 100 and 200 and 400 as you kind of branch away from the runway. And generally, if you're underneath that grid, you can kind of get an automatic approval based on your location using those apps. In the areas where you've got to go higher than what they've kind of preset, whether it's the 0 grid or 50, you got to get up to 100 feet. Then you kind of got to go through the drone zone process and submit an authorization. And you used to be able to do like area wide, so we can go on and request airspace approval for all of Buffalo. But since they've kind of incorporated Lance more, and now we're able to use Lance for nighttime operations as well, which is a key part of what we do for thermal. They're kind of moving away from area wide. I don't think they're doing them anymore. It's like site specific. And so basically you submit through drone zone. The biggest challenge is giving yourself enough lead time. You've got to manage that process, right? Because it usually takes weeks to get through all the red tape and have the government on the other side. You got to intake what you're doing, figure it out, and then provide the authorization. So it's just a lot of planning and making sure that you gave yourself time to work through those hoops. But we've been doing it for a while, and so we've gotten pretty proficient in managing that process.
Yeah, it's excellent, and it's an interesting and kind of, I don't know, well, to a layman, feels complex, right? Like there's a lot to kind of sort out. So I appreciate you all helping us out on that shoot and making that happen.
It's like doing your taxes. I mean, the first time.
Right. Exactly.
The first time it feels overwhelming, right? But once you get through
and
it,
then after you go through it,
figure out what you're doing.
Nice. Well, and I will ask too, because it is Success Through Video Month on the Creator Network. And I guess maybe I didn't really bring that up. So it is the month of July here is Success Through Video. That's our monthly theme. And that's some of what we're talking about with EagleHawk. Are there other interesting ways that you use video? You mentioned the thermal imaging. You mentioned inspection with video. I don't know. Have you done other shoots like the one we're talking about? Have you ever done anything, I guess, a little out of the ordinary that involved using video with this tech?
Yeah, I mean, we've done the traditional videography stuff with drones. We've gone out and done photo shoots of real estate property or wherever it is. I mean, it's a smaller part of our business. Our niche has really been on the inspection side, and that's where
Right.
we've kind of focused and grown. But there are opportunities where we will take a kind of a standard videography type job from now and then. And I'm sure there's guys in the industry that do it very well, but I think we do it okay. And Will, especially, he enjoys that type of work. But when it comes to unique stuff, I remember when they tore down those houses on Elmwood by Forest there.
Sure. Yep.
We did a time lapse video with the drone that came out to be pretty neat. So we had the drone up in the air for 2 days straight because they were doing that demo. And we kind of combined it all into a single time lapse video, and it was pretty neat to kind of see all that change through kind of an aerial perspective. So,
oh, that's very cool. How what did you have? Drone coming up and down all the time, and it found the same coordinates and took another shot?
Yeah, we used 2 drones. So we would we try to set it in the same GPS coordinate every time. And it was a little windy at times, so it would move a little bit, and we kind of had to work with that motion. And so it wasn't like a perfect time lapse where it's perfectly still. But when we sped it up, it turned out okay. But we had one drone parked in one area, and then we had another drone going around and actually moving with the work. And so it was kind of neat to combine those 2 perspectives. We also had a GoPro on the ground, on top of one of our vehicles that stayed in one spot.
Yeah,
we kind of combined it all together.
Very cool. That's yeah, and you're hitting it from all directions there. That's excellent.
And then when it comes to the thermal, when we do a steam inspection, so a lot of older campuses in the Northeast have a centralized heat plant. They make steam or high temp hot water, and then they pump it to all the buildings on campus through underground utilities, so that the radiator system in the building has a heat, and they can kind of distribute it throughout the building. And a lot of these systems are older, and so they're leaking. With the thermal camera, we could see the heat coming up from the ground and identify where they have issues. And so we use video a lot. We actually program the drone to follow the steam line, and we actually map it out in visual and thermal, and then we combine it in picture-in-picture video. And so the facilities manager use that because now they kind of see a guided tour of their system. And so when they bring new people on board or they're trying to communicate with management, we get a nice video representation of where it is. And so everybody can kind of understand where it is on campus and how it runs between the buildings and all that. So they find that extremely helpful. So it's another great way we use video.
And another way, to kind of keep track of that lost energy, right? So that actually ends up being a big piece of it, I would imagine. Hot spots on the roof, hot spots in the heating system, right? And you can find a lot of those issues. Well, that is excellent. I'm going to move on to a question that I ask everybody on this podcast. It's kind of the thread that connects all the episodes. So this is the Smarter Business Podcast. What is one thing that you've done to make your business or a client's business smarter?
Yeah, it's a good question, Neil. And so, I came out of a big company environment at Lockheed Martin where they had tons of resources, people to help you with anything. I mean, in different roles and different jobs. And as many people know, as you start off as an entrepreneur, it's either a one-man band, or in our case, it was me and Will to start the company. And so you're kind of, they joke, you're a chief cook and bottle washer. You're doing everything, right? And you're learning a lot on the fly, and it can be overwhelming. But the one thing I recommend is take advantage of the resources that are out there for entrepreneurs and startups. And that's one area where we were very fortunate. We got connected with Launch New York early on, and they connected us with a mentor who was like a coach that could give us advice and guidance along the way. So we weren't starting from scratch. They could share their lessons learned and what they figured out, and help us think through the business model and the business plan and what we're trying to do to give us the best chance for success. So if you're looking at getting into your own photography business or drone business, whatever it is, take the time to seek out the resources that are out there to help entrepreneurs, because there's great people out there that are giving back. And it's been a key, instrumental part to our success, those programs. And so I would highly recommend, Launch New York. Here in Buffalo, we were part of Genius New York and Syracuse. And we've been part of an incubator that's funded by CERTA resources. So take advantage of the resources that are out there, and do your best to connect with others. And there's mentorship groups, there's entrepreneurship groups, there's all kinds of resources out there that people want to get started with their own company.
That's great advice. I mean, it's so hard to figure it all out on your own, and to tie it back to what you said about the drones, right? If something's already there, don't reinvent the wheel. Listen to your
Yeah,
mentor. Use the drone that works well for what you're doing. Just kind of keep it moving forward. So that's excellent advice to anyone. So.
thank you.
The last thing I always do with any interview, this podcast or in-person interviews, is always just give the interviewee a chance just to say something. If I forgot something, if our conversation knocks something loose, that you're thinking about now, I always like to have an open-ended. Did we miss anything, Patrick? Is there anything else you want to add? And no is an okay answer.
I mean, I think we covered most of it. I mean, I really appreciate the opportunity, Neil, to be on the podcast. I hope your listeners find it meaningful and interesting, but, really excited to have the opportunity to start my own company and not be 5 years into it. I mean, when you start a company, you never think you're going to get past the first few months, so 5 years later, excited and blessed to still keep it going. And, it's great technology. And I look forward to seeing where drones and drone technology is going to go over the next 5 to 10 years. And hopefully we can continue to be a part of the industry and keep it going.
Excellent. Yeah. And, belated welcome home. I did the same thing. I boomeranged, right? As a lot of Buffalo people call it now. I was out of town, came home to start up. So interesting times because of a lot of that going on. And thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us. And keep it going. That's you are on the forefront of the drone innovation, especially in this local space. And it was great to have you on. And to everyone listening and watching, thank you for checking us out. If you found the information that we went through here useful, we would love a review or a subscribe, and share this with friends and colleagues who might find it interesting. Patrick, back when we were in studio and we did this, we would shake hands right now, but we'll do the Zoom wave. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.